turn to John 3:16, I will say that the message
And we
that
sang this morning that wonderful and grand old message. I don't know about you, but I
Hey!
No, it sucked. Okay.
Okay, that was horrible.
3, 2, 1. Hey! Hey!
Hey, Jared.
Hey, Sean.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Awesome. We got the Bones Q&A podcast today. We're going to get started.
Excellent. What's the first question?
Jared, the first question is, why can't women be preachers?
What's the next question?
I thought so. Where do I start reading my Bible?
Okay.
And the third question is, why did God make life on earth? But Jared, really, I'm curious. Why can't women be preachers?
So, Sean, this is easily one of the most commonly debated issues in the Church of North America. Now, the epicenter of the argument comes from a passage in 1 Timothy. It's 1 Timothy 2:12. Paul says this. He says, I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over man. And so at first glance, as we look at the verse, it may seem harsh, it may seem sexist or domineering. And we don't want anybody that's listening to think that that is our intention as we talk about it, because it is a verse that has been regularly taken out of context to put women down and bolster men's opinions. And if that was the purpose behind this, to put women down in our minds and all that, then we would title this show Forever Alone. But it's not. So let's take a look at it. It's important to understand that this is a timeless truth, that women cannot be preachers over men or cannot be pastors. It's not something that is just cultural. If it were, Paul wouldn't use the defense that he does in the verse following 12 and 13, where he says, for Adam was formed first and then Eve. So he draws our attention back to the beginning of time with this creation order that Adam was created first, followed by Eve. And if we look at another statement Paul makes in 1 Corinthians 11:3, he says this, now I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Now this does not mean by any means that women are spiritually inferior. It just means that there are differing roles, and that there needs to be a head of a household. Now, as we're saying this, we want everybody to know that we work at a church where there are a lot of women in different ministry positions, and we're not trying to downplay the effect that they have in ministry. Just in the way that Paul has outlined it, women cannot be teachers over men.
Wow, Jared, that's deep, man. You know, that doesn't mean that women cannot be involved in ministry, though, right?
I agree.
You know, at North County here, for example, we've got a lot of really great and talented women on our staff that do some amazing ministry for the Lord, right?
Correct.
And I think that that's what we really want people to get out of this as well, is that doesn't mean that women are not equipped to do ministry or that God doesn't call women to do ministry. He obviously does. And he equips them with a lot of the same gifts that he equips men. But we're talking about is women to preach over men.
Correct.
Good. Good. Wow. That's heavy. What's our next question?
The next question is, why did God make life on earth? Why did he create us?
Big. I thought it was aliens. All right, here we go. So bottom line, Genesis 1:26 says God created man and woman in his image. And I think that we should begin to understand that God created us to love him, live with him, know him, and glorify him. And that's why we were created. To know him, love him, live with him, and glorify him. I think it's important that we understand, like in 1 Peter 4, verse 11, that God in all things may be glorified is what it says, is that God created the earth as a display of his glory. He's saying, look how awesome I am. I can make these things. And that might sound conceited, might sound selfish, might sound whatever, but the reality is that God spoke it and we existed. And so I think that's definitely worthy of our praise. Thoughts?
No, Sean, I definitely agree, and I think that it's important to note that this was God's plan from the beginning. We read in Jeremiah 31:3 that I have loved you with an everlasting love, and God in himself, as we see in 1 John 4:8, is love. when John says that God is love. And so he created us to share this creation with us. You know, and like you said, to show his glory, as it says in Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of his hands. And that's truly what creation is the glory that we see. And he created us and it to share that with him.
So essentially, we're a product of God's love. Why did God create the world? Because love is what he makes, and we are that display for him. Awesome. There's a third question, and this one's maybe just more, what is your basic answer? Not really there's a right or wrong, correct? And the question is, where do I start reading in my Bible? Where would you start?
Sean, I would probably start in the book of James. From middle school until high school, I thought it was probably the most valuable book that I read. And at the end of last year, as we went through the whole book of James, I was reminded of a lot of the great knowledge that it has to offer that's really practical, not super deep, but are good reminders to go back over about what it really means to walk in genuine faith and a relationship with God. How about yourself?
Yeah, that's really good, man. I mean, typically I encourage people to start in one of three places, Book of James being one for exactly the reason that you said. Two would be one of the Gospels, and usually I encourage people to start in the book of Mark. It's one of the shorter Gospels. It covers more just the basic story of Jesus' life. It's kind of the root of where the rest of the Gospels come out of. So if there's any place to start there, I would suggest Mark. And also Genesis 1, 2, and 3, man. I think seeing the foundation of the world and man's original sin and really getting that in reference to why then did Jesus need to come is really important, especially in Genesis 3:16, where God tells the serpent that he's going to be sending his offspring to crush the serpent's head. And then you go in and start reading the book of Mark and seeing that Jesus is the offspring that God was talking about. I think those two stories right there tie together really well.
Sean, that is a great answer. Very insightful. I'm glad that you told that to me. I'm a different person now.
I can see that. I think your mustache is starting to come in better.
I need to shave more. All right, remember to put your questions that you have about anything pertaining to the faith, scripture, bones, all of it in the mailbox in the back of the youth rooms. If you're at the hub, it is yellow. If you are at the student center, it is gray and stapled to the back wall.
Exactly. Or you can message us on Facebook, /BonesNCCTK. Check it out.
And that concludes our Bones Q&A podcast for this week.
All right, we're out of here. Peace to your mothers and your dads.